Johnathan Roumie of The Chosen went on The View. Now, this could potentially go left. And the question is, did it go left? Did they ask him all the hot button questions? Or was it a genuinely good conversation that pointed people to the show? Before we get into this video, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. So many of you guys watch this channel. I'm super grateful for you. If you aren't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. We are on the verge of cracking 500,000 subscribers. I would love to celebrate that with you. Also, we had a lot of issues with Disney and The View claiming this video and not letting us put out this reaction. So if you notice that the audio is a little different, a little sped up, that's why. Apologies in advance. Let's jump into this conversation.
You were just saying, at least you're not a blonde, blue-eyed Jesus, finally.
Yeah, who Jesus might have actually been.
Jewish.
Yeah.
They're going to come back to that thought, the blonde hair, blue eye, which by the way, is really funny when you think about it. And I'll get to why. And this is a big deal. Like going on a mainstream outlet, I don't know how much it's going to move the needle, but this is definitely, you're talking, this is morning TV show. This is something that's, I think, a pretty big deal in terms of getting this out there, hopefully.
100%.
Yeah.
You play Jesus. So are you finding that people are having a little bit of trouble separating you from the part?
You just did.
Yes, but
presence.
She literally just did it. That's the best part. His series, Johnathan and Jesus, right? They talk about that. They talk about people in the trailer. There's someone.
In the trailer, there's someone that walks up and is like, Jesus, I love you, and gives him a hug. And he's like, oh, ha.
Yeah, very, 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 very awkward. I think he's pretty self-aware this kind of stuff happens. It has to be super hard for him to do this. And by the way, people who think that like he gets a kick out of this or Dallas gets like the opposite. I can promise you it's the opposite.
occasionally the line seems a little blurred, so I try to gently just remind people that my name is Johnathan and not actually Jesus. I've had people try.
Wow! Like, people try to confess their sins to him.
Oh,
Nope.
Some of y'all weird, man. Hey, some of y'all just weirdos, bro. It's a show. It's a show. That's not real.
He's acting.
He's acting. This is a TV show.
I'm like, nope, save it for the priest.
Johnathan, you can have fun with that.
Then I got to answer for it later.
That was interesting. They said you could have fun with that, with like the idea of people. And he said I would have to answer for it later.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of checks him.
He kind of checks him. He's like, this is not something to play around with.
This ain't nothing to play around with.
And that's cool to see someone that an actor that's playing Jesus really respect that role.
Yeah, respect.
Those jobs weren't actually paying the bills, so you considered at some point kind of giving up on this. How did you decide to stay the course?
I had booked a few other jobs. I started booking television, and I thought, okay, well, this is an opportunity to see if I can actually make this work. So I moved to LA, and for 8 years, I didn't have the safety of the job that I left in New York. It's a different unions and all sorts of complications to do the same thing in LA, but that's not what I was going to LA for. So I had to do all these other jobs, these side jobs, and gotten to the point where I was broke, I was out of money, I was out of food. The only thing I hadn't done at that point was the thing that was left to do, which was to get on my knees and surrender my entire life and my career.
That's awesome.
And everything that I had up to that point over to God.
That's incredible. I mean, those of us who have pursued something entrepreneurial, something creative, something in the arts, something in music, know that it is scary stuff. Now, I did it with a family. Like I did it with like a wife and kid, quit my job 2015 to pursue being an independent musician. In 2015, like it was like the only people who were this is before Russ, this is before Tom McDonald, this is before any proof of concept that this could even work.
Just the end of the people buying albums era, and it was just the beginning of the streaming and no era. TikTok era. So there was no explosion.
Era. Yeah, no explosion, and so it was just a slow, steady, but by the grace of God, like we survived. However, probably the difference between me and Johnathan is that we had 6 months of living expenses saved. So I knew that if I ran out of money in 6 months, then I can go work for Uber. I don't know if I told you, I actually registered for Uber. Registered for Ubers, was like, and then I just never had to turn on the app, thankfully.
Nice.
And at one point, I mean, we were even throwing up one of the rooms in the studio.
I remember that for Airbnb.
You know, just to make it, because it was not like booming like that.
Got complaints about the ants.
Got complaints about, remember those ants?
Yes, those pesky ants.
Those daggone ants. So I relate to this, like, I'm going to follow what I believe God is telling me to do, because I believe I'm supposed to be here, right? And in both of our cases, I thought I was supposed to be doing music. I ended up landing in YouTube. He thought he was going to go the mainstream Hollywood route and ended up doing a Jesus show. Yeah. Right? So it's funny how things work out that way, but the parallel is coming to the end of yourself and surrendering it all and say, God, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but whatever you want to do, ultimately let your will be done in my life, right? And then God always uses that for. It's like you got to let your dream die in order for God to resurrect it the way He intended it.
It really wasn't until after that moment, it was about almost 6 years ago now, where I just said, Jesus, I surrender myself to you, take care of everything. And that day, I received this incomprehensible financial miracle that changed my life. And then 3 months later, I booked The Chosen.
Wow. Would have been crazy if he booked The Chosen that same day.
Yeah, that would have been great.
That's awesome, man. That's beautiful.
And I are huge fans of The Chosen, and it's so interesting because this story's been told so many times. There've been so many different renderings, but this one it plays like a a drama. There's sex, there's humor, there's violence.
Okay, hold on. Hold on.
That made no sense. Oh, no.
Hold on. Okay. Now this is where the view we just start. Y'all just start showing your hand. What are we doing? There's no sex in The Chosen. There's no murder in The Chosen. What are we talking about? She making it sound like we're watching Snowfall or Game of Thrones. There's sex in The Chosen. There's murder in The Chosen. Have you watched an episode? She said she watched an episode.
She says she's a big fan.
She's a big fan. So anyway, I guess there is some sus stuff, but not in a not like sex. Like, huh?
There's a scene. Is it Simeon and his wife?
Mm-hmm.
In like the first or second season, where he alludes to being like, let's have sex, and she's like, your brothers are here or whatever.
Oh, you're talking about
Simon,
not Simeon.
Sorry.
Simon.
And then
oh, I see.
And but I'm like, to say there's murder. I was like, okay, there is biblical marriage represented.
Right. Yeah.
A biblical sex ethic.
There's Christian marriage represents biblical sex ethic.
They're definitely not saying that on the show.
Yeah. So
View.
Anyway, that was a little like, what are we talking about? But okay, she means well. She's a fan. We're going to let that one slide.
One of our crew, Zach, came to me months ago and said, I'm Catholic. You got to watch this show about Jesus. I was like, I know a lot about Jesus. And I don't, obviously. But
there's always more to learn.
There's always more to learn. And you're so profound. I think.
Hey, just let her have that. You're so profound. There's always more to learn. It's,
Yeah, wow, you're so profound.
Okay,
She's right. He's dropping
growing
gems. Shout out to Johnathan, man.
It's a low bar for profoundness on The View.
I always saw the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, right? And now I go to Black Catholic Church and Jesus is brown.
Yeah.
And I think it seems that you took such great pains to do that in this and to portray him as he probably likely was, since this was the Middle East, right? Most people don't know that.
Hold on. All right, Dallas, you're probably right. I'm not trying to roast The View. I love that you guys are on The View. Did she just say you took such great pains to not make Jesus white? What does that mean?
What does that mean?
You took such great pains to portray him as what does that mean? Real quick, I don't want to badger this point too much. Watch my conversation with Arthur from Apologia Center. We talked about how every stream of Christianity, every denomination, whether it's the Eastern Orthodox, the Catholics, the everybody makes their depictions of Jesus in their own, reflective of their own ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does. That's why in her church they got a black Catholic Jesus, right? And in the West they had a white Catholic Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. So I've seen Asian Jesus,
same,
right? I've seen Armenian Jesus. I've seen all kinds of Jesuses, right? So I think this notion that the white Jesus was like, it has been the standard. It's like, I've been to so many churches across my whole life, and I've always seen black Jesus. So I think that is like we make that out to be more of a malicious point than it needs to be. Two, I think it's funny that she's like, you went out of your way to, as if Johnathan has any control over what he looks like.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then now to her point, Jonathan's father, I think, is North African. If we're gonna have any sort of depiction of Jesus, it probably is going to look closer to Johnathan.
Yeah.
Right? The irony about that is that Johnathan is still too white for certain people in terms of their depiction of Jesus. And we've seen it in the chat. I've seen my own friends. Matter of fact, a prominent Christian rapper, I posted something about me being at The Chosen, and he's like, why is Jesus white? I said, Johnathan is North African. He's literally from the region where Jesus is from, where Jesus went as a kid. Like, Johnathan grew up there, or didn't grow up there. His family's from there. So you'll always find someone to nitpick something. She's sitting here telling him, you went out of your way to depict Jesus more accurately, as if he had any choice over that. Maybe she was maybe she misspoke him. She was trying to say is the way they casted him, they were trying to consider the way he would look. Maybe that's what, if I had to, be extremely gracious and steelman her. But the issue is that Johnathan is still too white for certain people's preference of Jesus. Yeah. And Johnathan is literally, and then you'll get into the conspiracy theories of, well, all of Africa and all of Israel was all black, and then the Muslim conquest came, and then that's how it looked. That's why people in Egypt and in North Africa look the way they do, which is nonsense. Like that's just not true, So, anyways, interesting that's the point they wanted to hamper on.
The show explores that the way Judaism is woven into the story in such a beautiful way. Your cast is extremely diverse. Was that important to you and to your director, Dallas Jenkins, when this was coming together? Was that intentional?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dallas is the creator of the show. We have 2 other writers in addition to Dallas, and they wanted to bring to the screen the most authentic portrayal of Jesus and his disciples in this story, and its roots and its Jewishness and the diversity of the people and the colors and everybody that would have lived in next to these seafaring towns. They were port cities.
And they got help with that, from my understanding. They didn't just wing it.
Oh yeah,
like there was people that helped. There was other scholars that helped. There were people that pitched in on this, that they didn't just we're gonna make it diverse for diversity's sake, because that could also be cringe.
Yeah,
like diversity for diversity's sake, when it's and this is why people in Egypt are bent out of shape, because there's a black Cleopatra on Netflix, because they're like, Cleopatra wasn't black, right? So there's that element. This is where the representation conversation, which I think is a fine one, because my son is half black. I'm Armenian. My wife is black. So, but this is where the representation conversation overcorrects, and now we start changing history and we start changing basic things to over accommodate and create this racial quota thing. And if it's happening based on history and based on a reasonable depiction, fine. But in the Book of Clarence, everyone's black. Everyone, you think everyone in Israel was black and African? That's, because then why would they distinguish the Ethiopian eunuch for being Ethiopian, right? There's clearly people in the scriptures that were black, but they're described as such.
In the clip that we saw earlier, which shows Jesus speaking up for marginalized people, the poor, etc., which is the Jesus that we love, not everyone interprets that message the same way these days. Religion in this country even seems weaponized at times. As a man of deep faith, which you obviously are, does that frustrate you at all?
In that clip, we see Jesus basically taking to task the Pharisees that have essentially perverted the law or taken the faith and made it about the specificity in the letters of the law versus the heart of the law versus the community. They were taking great pains to follow the law at the expense of the followers. And there was injustice in that. And, anytime you see injustice taking place, Jesus is not going to be happy about that.
This is well played on his part.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is on some, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, render unto God what is God's. Right? So he used the words they wanted to hear, injustice.
Yep.
Right? He used the things they wanted to hear.
That's great.
But if I had to guess, knowing where Johnathan stands in some of his public displays of his support for Israel, knowing where Johnathan stands in some of his other public positions, I don't know Johnathan, by the way. I've seen Johnathan a couple times in person. I've never had a conversation with him, so I don't know him. I think he's using the words they want to hear, but is saying something different than they want him to say.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I don't think he means justice in the sense of equity, equal outcome for everyone. Justice. Yeah. I don't think he means climate justice, where we're going to tell you can't have a gas-powered vehicle anymore.
Greta Thunberg,
I don't
BLM.
I don't think that's what Jonathan's saying. Now, me and Johnathan would agree that, hey, man, police brutality, unaccountability in law enforcement, unaccountability in the FBI, right? In any bureaucratic situation, that's bad. Deep state, we should fix that. But again, I don't know, but I think, is my opinion, but I think this is well played on his part. He said the words they wanted to hear without having to go any deeper into...
And gave context to the actual...
And gave context to what was going on. What do you guys think? I'm curious what you guys think about this thing. I think it's a W in terms of getting it further out there. I don't know how many people watch The View and how much is going to move the needle.
Yeah.
And, but I think this is strategic on their part. This is brilliant. My gut would tell me this is probably maybe connected with just the overall success of the show, as well as the overall reach of maybe their new distribution partner with Lionsgate, which is now going to have the whole season 4 in theaters, which is pretty amazing. And so I think that's a massive W.
I think it's a good, even just an online moment. I don't know who's tuning into The View, but The View has a stigma. So the juxtaposition of The Chosen on The View is also just a good moment.
It's interesting.
It's interesting. There's a lot of people here right now even watching it.
We don't like The View.
We don't like The View. And so it also created some good content, seeing a worldly perspective interact with The Chosen, but at the end of the day, still promoting The Chosen, I think is a win.
And to be clear, Johnathan is unapologetically Catholic. Yeah. So some of you guys are going to have an issue with that, right? I personally don't have an issue with that. And if you do have an issue with that, I'd actually recommend you go watch my conversation with Trent Horn that goes over the differences and allow a Catholic to explain the differences between Protestants and Catholics to you, so that you aren't straw manning Catholicism. Because what we don't want to do is, in our disagreements with other streams of Christianity, we're then straw manning and saying half truths and being ignorant and being ill-informed. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to see me explore similar themes with the creator of The Chosen, Dallas Jenkins, check this out. Or if you want to see my response to one of the biggest predominant voices in modern Protestantism that pushes back against The Chosen because he thinks it breaks the second commandment, check out this video over here. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.